everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome to Watch Mojo. Today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 secrets about the filming of Christopher Nolan scenes.
What's that? Well, the Tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
For this list, we're looking at extravagant Christopher Nolan scenes and detailing how they were reportedly made. So, what's your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Be sure to let us know in the comments. All right, let's get into it. Number 10, crashing a real plane. Tenet. Crashing this plane is a quote from The Dark Knight Rises.
Now what's the next step of your master plan?
Crashing this plane.
But it also applies to Tenet. Christopher Nolan prefers to use practical effects over CGI, even if a scene involves constructing an entire abandoned town or crashing an airplane through a building. Nolan told Total Film that he originally planned to utilize miniatures and, quote, a combination of visual effects to film the scene from the sci-fi action thriller, but later realized that it would be cheaper to just buy a 747 and do it for real. So that's exactly what they did.
Like, there's no way they're gonna crash this thing into that building.
Tenet's plane crash sequence is 100% real. And as Robert Pattinson hilariously claims, quote, it's so bold to the point of ridiculousness.
Yeah, we got a 747 or crashing it into a building. That's how we're achieving the 747 crashing into a building. It feels very, very real, essentially because it is real.
That could be Christopher Nolan's motto. Number 9, Gun Cartridge, Memento. This is arguably Christopher Nolan's most reserved and grounded movie, but it's still filled with a lot of Nolan-esque flourishes, like non-chronological storytelling and reversed playback.
If you have a piece of information which is vital, writing on your body instead of on a piece of paper, it can be the answer. It's just a permanent way of keeping a note.
One of the most brilliant examples of the former comes in the film's opening sequence, as Memento shows the result of Teddy's murder before rewinding to the shooting itself. During the rewinding, a bullet case spins, rises from the ground, and goes back inside Leonard's gun. In Nolan's own words in terms of the film, that, quote, was the height of complexity. An optical to make a backward running shot forwards, and the forward shot a simulation of a backwards shot. Number 8, football field explosion. The Dark Knight Rises. Regardless of how much Nolan loves his practical effects, sometimes he is forced to utilize CGI. And one of the biggest uses of CGI in his filmography can be found in the football field explosion of The Dark Knight Rises.
Let the games begin.
The scene was shot in a real stadium, Pittsburgh's Heinz Field to be exact, and employed a mix of practical effects and CGI. The real stuff included pyrotechnics and a raised turf, allowing stuntmen to fall through the field. Obviously, the complete destruction of the field itself was done in post using CGI.
Obviously, I challenge everybody to put as many real elements of that frame as possible. From the dirt flying in the air, to the guys falling up the holes.
We know Nolan is a fantastic filmmaker, but he's not about to blow up a football stadium, right? Number 7, Victorian London, The Prestige. This is one of Nolan's most underappreciated efforts, grossing just $109 million at the worldwide box office. The story takes place in London at the end of the 19th century and concerns two stage magicians, one of the working class, the other an aristocrat.
He's squandering the goodwill of the audience with these tired, second-rate tricks.
They're all favorites, please.
Favorites? Come on, give me something fresh.
So how did Nolan and his team achieve such a believable and authentic Victorian London? By filming in Los Angeles. The theater stuff was filmed in the city's Broadway district due to its unique Victorian architecture, and other LA locations were simply dressed up in period detail.
Do not be alarmed. What you're about to see is considered safe.
Other than that, the film was shot on sound stages and even the parking lot of the Mount Wilson Observatory. Sometimes the most convincing effects are the most simple. Number 6, The Tumbler, Batman Begins.
What's that? Well, the Tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
This was Christopher Nolan's first big blockbuster, complete with a $150 million budget. he certainly put the money to good use, like building a real Batmobile.
Because I had a very specific idea in my head about a contemporary approach to a Batmobile. And our approach to it would tell everybody who saw it a lot about what we're doing with the whole film, which is a more grounded reality in which we're trying to base this story.
Officially known as the Tumbler, the Batmobile took 9 months to make and included things like a racing truck suspension system, hydraulics, and a 5.7-liter Chevy V8 engine.
Chris Nolan wanted the Batmobile to be a real car, not just a car that looked pretty but didn't actually function. You know, his gem was, look, I want this to be a mean machine. I want it to perform.
The visual effects team built 4 separate Tumblers at a combined cost of $1 million. One with a fully functioning jet engine. These Tumblers were then actually driven through the streets of Chicago by a team of professional stunt drivers, each of whom required 6 months of training. Number 5. Bistro Explosion. Inception. While it may seem like Inception is filled with CGI, most of the effects were done practically, as is often Nolan's way. For example, the train in the middle of a Los Angeles street was actually a train in the middle of a Los Angeles street, while a train engine on top of a tractor trailer, but still. But one of the most impressive effects is the cafe explosion that convinces Ariadne that it's a dream.
This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm.
To film the sequence, Nolan and his team blew the set with high-pressure nitrogen and caught the destruction on 6 separate high-speed cameras.
Chris Corbold came up with this way of creating an explosion using air cannons, and we did tests with people sitting in front. Action! And we showed them to Leo and showed it to Ellen and said, this is what it's going to be.
Some supplemental debris was added in post through the use of CGI.
What we do in visual effects is we can add more destruction, we can add more debris. In particular, we can add the kind of stuff which just wasn't possible to do on the day when we actually filmed it, which is all the hard, rigid bits of masonry and glass and furniture.
Number 4, The Tesseract, Interstellar. Even Interstellar, a movie about space travel, black holes, and dimension-hopping tesseracts, was mostly made through the use of practical effects, including the Tesseract itself.
Stay!
The Tesseract was built on a massive soundstage, and it reportedly took months of planning, procrastinating, brainstorming, and building.
It was the thing we started with, Nathan and myself, and it was the very last thing that we actually pinned down, even though it was a very considerable set that needed to be built. That took a long time.
Cables were then attached to Matthew McConaughey, who was able to float and glide through the set and interact with its numerous elements, including the bookshelf he peers through to watch Murphy.
His stunt double would rehearse everything. We'd have it all dialed in. We'd bring Matthew over. We'd show him the action and what he would have to do. And he'd be like, okay, put me up. So we'd put him on, take him up, and he'd replicate it again and again when they needed it. And it worked really well.
This is the sort of stuff movie lovers get with a genius and ambitious filmmaker with a $165 million budget. Number 3, Flipping a Truck, The Dark Knight. One of the most famous scenes in The Dark Knight sees Batman flipping Joker's truck upside down with the use of some cables. And how exactly does a filmmaker make this convincing? By actually flipping a truck, of course.
This truck flip, devised by Chris Corbold and his guys, came about very much as a result of me just pushing them to do this flip with a 18-wheeler articulated truck.
The stunt truck was equipped with TNT and a giant steel piston. The TNT would trigger the heavy piston with a small explosion, which in turn pushed the truck onto its back.
We actually tested it on the site of where we blew the hospital up. It was just us and the stunt guys at this test site. Did the run up, pressed the button, and it just sailed over. I couldn't believe my eyes.
All of this was filmed on Chicago's LaSalle Street, and the piston was bravely triggered by stunt driver Jim Wilkie, who was actually inside the truck when it flipped. Number 2, Plane Hijacking, The Dark Knight Rises. The concluding film to Nolan's Batman trilogy contains one of the greatest opening sequences in action movie history.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
It sees Bane and his henchmen hijacking a plane, kidnapping a nuclear physicist, and subsequently dumping the plane over Uzbekistan. The image of the wingless airplane dangling from the bigger aircraft is now iconic, and it looks absolutely spectacular, especially on the big screen. And that's because it's all real. The entire scene was accomplished using stuntmen and a real dangling aircraft. And Nolan has admitted that successfully pulling it off in just 2 days was a high point in his filmmaking career.
Now's not the time for fear. That comes later.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The spinning hallway, Inception. The plane stunt is undoubtedly impressive, but the rotating hallway from Inception just has a certain beauty and filmmaking majesty to it. To film the iconic sequence in which Arthur fights henchmen in a zero-gravity hallway, the production team built a massive 100-foot-long hotel corridor on 8 spinning concentric rings. The rings then spun the constructed hallway, resulting in the scene's disorienting zero-gravity effect.
I mean, the idea of using a centrifuge to manipulate gravity, it's been done on various films, most notably Kubrick's 2001. And I like the idea of repurposing that technology and really trying to choreograph an entire fight sequence.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt also did his own stunts inside the hallway contraption. Stunts that required weeks of planning, training, and getting bruised. The result was well worth it, as he's now part of what's arguably Nolan's most iconic action sequence. This scene and its construction are pure filmmaking wizardry.
It just doesn't look possible. It's very clever.
In my head, Christopher Nolan makes thriller movies, but then I looked at this list and I was like, he really does do amazing action scenes. Gotta love practical effects. Anyway, be sure to let us know in the comments if you learned anything new in this video, or if you think we missed something. Or come tell me on Twitter or Instagram @Rebecca Brayton, or on my YouTube channel. See ya!